Can you imagine a Sunday morning so alive it hums? In Grand Steiner, that's what you'd get, the air thick with the scent of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee, the diner buzzing like a beehive by 8:30 a.m. booths filled up fast, retirees swapping tales, churchgoers in their Sunday best, and regulars who could recite the menu in their sleep. It was Veterans Discount Day, half off for anyone with proof of service. Welcome to a tale of heartfelt gratitude stories, where compassion and kindness rise above the ordinary. Let's dive into what really unfolded. Signs shouted it from every window, a little flag pin gleamed on the hostess stand, and one table was already deep into war stories, real or not, who could tell? The place sang with laughter, clinking forks, and twangy country tunes spilling from a dusty speaker in the corner. What a scene! But in the back corner, right by the exit sign, sat a man who seemed to fade into the noise. Walter Reed, thin as a whisper, quiet as a shadow, with snow-white hair and a brown coat that had weathered too many winters. A dull metal prosthetic leg peeked out from frayed jeans, can you believe it? No medals pinned to his chest, no bald cap stitched with a unit's name. He didn't need them. He'd barely spoken since he shuffled in, just ordered the veteran special, scrambled eggs and toast, no substitutions, and sat there, alone. Always alone. From behind the counter, towel slung over my shoulder, I watched him cradle his water glass with both hands. Was he steadying it, or himself? It wasn't his silence that turned heads, though. Oh no, it was the tattoo. Faded and warped with age, it clung to his left wrist, a dagger crossed through an anchor. Nothing flashy, barely legible, like something scratched into skin in a hurry, far from home. Who'd get a mark like that? Then came the vultures. 4 men, late 40s, loud as thunder, stuffed into matching golf jackets at the center booth. They spotted him right away. One nudged the others, smirking like a kid with a secret. Bet he drew that thing on himself, he snickered. Looks like a middle school dare. Another leaned in, grinning wide. What kind of vet doesn't even have a service ID? They laughed, not loud, but loud enough. Loud enough to slice through the diner's hum. How dare they? I froze at my station, heart pounding. I didn't know Walter's story, none of us did. He came in every year on this day, same spot, same order, said thank you, left $1, and vanished. He never made a fuss. Was that why it stung so bad to see him mocked? He didn't deserve this, no one did. Walter didn't flinch, didn't lift his head, just stared at his glass, lips tight with something heavy. Shame? Sadness? No, something deeper, like a lifetime pressing down on him. Then the manager, Todd, strutted over, clipboard tucked under his arm, that fake customer service smile plastered on. Sir, he said, polite but cold, we've had a couple of complaints. Some guests feel uncomfortable. Would you mind relocating to the patio? What? The air shifted, I stopped wiping the counter, breath caught in my throat. Walter didn't argue, just nodded faintly, not agreeing, but giving in. How many times had he heard this before? He gathered his tray with one shaky hand, gripped his cane with the other, and stood. Each step was slow, a battle between pain and pride, his prosthetic leg creaking like a cry for help. As he passed the center table, one of those jerks raised his coffee mug and crowed, if he's a SEAL, I must be the president. The table erupted in laughter, cruel, sharp, unforgiving. And then, oh, my God, did you see it? A single tear slid down Walter's cheek, hitting the tile floor like a gunshot. No one spoke. No one stopped him. Todd just turned away, tables to check, right? Walter made it to the glass door, fumbling with the handle, and stepped into the biting autumn light. The wind slapped him hard, can you picture it, but he squinted, scanned the empty patio, and settled at a table near the edge. One hand on his cane, the other setting down a plate of cold eggs. Inside, the diner slipped back into its cozy lie, customers sipping refills, those men chuckling softer now, still smug. I didn't know what to do. I was new, just a high school kid told to smile, pour coffee, and stay out of trouble. But Walter, how could he take that humiliation like it was nothing new? My throat ached, I kept stealing glances out the window. There he was, alone, steam curling off his coffee only because the wind was so cold. Then, at 8:46 a.m., bam, the bell above the door jingled, and in walked a young man who changed everything. Black jacket, tight haircut, military straight posture, late 20s, no smile, no hesitation, just a quiet force that parted the crowd without a word. He scanned the room, sharp, quick, then locked onto Walter's empty seat. His gaze slid to the window, to that tattoo still visible as Walter steadied his fork. And, holy cow, he stopped dead. His jaw tightened, his breath hitched, and the diner went silent, forks froze, the jukebox might as well have died. What was happening? This wasn't just a look, it was recognition. That young soldier, Jackson Miles, saw more than a faded tattoo. He saw history, brotherhood, a story only a few could know. His boots stayed glued just inside the door, like the world had grabbed him. Those eyes, trained, fierce, fixed on that dagger through the anchor. Not just any mark. It was a badge of an elite unit, files still locked away after 50 years, worn by only 8 men ever. And Walter Reed was one of them, can you believe it? Jackson took a step, then another, slow, deliberate. The diner's buzz was gone, even the coffee machine hushed. Everyone watched as he passed the booths, the counter, those mocking fools at the center table. He reached the window, peered out, and, wham, the wind slammed the door shut. We all jumped. From behind the counter, my heart hammered. Walter hadn't noticed yet, still hunched over his cold eggs, trying to shrink away. Jackson pushed the door open and stepped onto the patio. 2 feet from the table, he stood tall, shoulders squared, and snapped a perfect salute. "Sir," he barked, loud enough to echo inside. "Are you Walter Reed of SEAL Team Bravo?" Walter looked up, slow, confused. The wind flipped his coat, bearing the full tattoo. Jackson's voice cracked, just a little. "G7, isn't it, sir? You're the one they tell us about in training." "What?" Walter blinked, stunned, his hand clenched his cane. Finally, he nodded. Jackson held the salute, voice low but piercing. "Permission to sit, sir." Walter gestured to the chair. "Of course, son." Jackson sat, stiff, trembling with awe. Inside, we were statues, the servers, the guests, even those 4 jerks, their laughter now a ghost. Todd's face went white, me. My heart thudded because I knew that name. Walter Reed, G7, a legend whispered in SEAL camps. The man who ran extractions under fire with no radio, who saved 17 lives in Operation Swift Current, his record still a mystery because how could anyone do that? I only knew from Grandpa James Harrington's bedtime tales, real memories of a quiet hero with a wrist tattoo who always brought them home. And here he was, outside my window, rain looming, a soldier staring at him like he was royalty. Jackson turned slightly, his voice carrying inside. "This man," he said, "designed extraction protocols we still use. He built our field supply drop procedures. That tattoo. Earned in blood, not bought, not claimed." He glared at the center table. "If anyone's uncomfortable around a living legend, maybe you should eat outside." Oh, snap. One guy squirmed, another stood, abandoning his plate. 2 followed. By the time Jackson faced Walter again, only 2 stayed, eyes glued to their mugs, shame burning red. Walter didn't talk much, never did, but his lips curved into a faint smile, heavy with 50 years of silence. I don't know why I moved, but suddenly I was there, fresh coffee pot in hand. I poured Walter a cup, silent, then glanced at Jackson. "You want some too?" "Yes, ma'am," he murmured, taking it like a treasure. I stood there, lost for words. Then, on impulse, I pulled a folded note from my apron, Grandpa's field journal scrap. Inside, a photo, two young guys in jungle gear, grinning by a rusted truck. One was Grandpa James, the other had that tattoo. I set it on the table. Walter froze. His eyes traced it, then met mine. Did he see a ghost? What was your grandfather's name? He whispered. James Harrington, I said. He leaned back, exhaled. He promised me he'd buy the first burger when we got home. I smiled, tears pricking. He talked about you. Said you were why they made it back. Walter studied the photo, then me. You have his eyes. A lump choked me. Jackson just watched, silent, knowing this was sacred. Then, surprise, he stood, snapped a photo with his phone, Walter, the tattoo, the coffee, the picture, me beside him. Just a quiet Sunday moment, but Jackson knew its power. By nightfall, it was everywhere, millions saw it. Some shared it, some cried, some wondered, how had they missed Walter Reed? For the first time in 50 years, the world saw him, not just the man, but his mission. By Monday, it was viral, raw, real. A seal saluting an old vet, a coffee cup, a photo, a girl in an apron with tears in her eyes. Caption: Some heroes don't wear uniforms anymore. Some still carry the mission. I didn't know Jackson posted it, but the internet roared. Walter's name lit up, local news, then regional. By Wednesday, camera crews swarmed Grant's diner. Todd dodged them, me. I spoke, spilling what I'd seen, felt, nearly silenced. Who's Walter Reed? They asked. No ranks or records from me, just, he's a man who never asked for anything and deserves everything. Letters poured in by Friday, veterans first. I served in Nam, G7 was legend. My dad said a guy pulled 3 men from a burning truck. That your Walter? Then kids, dozens of envelopes, crayon drawings of a smiling old man with a tattoo. One read, Dear Mr. Reed, my grandpa cried, he said you brought him home. And there it was, small acts healing deep wounds, one photo waking the world to a hero who'd carried the mission, quiet as ever, until we finally saw him. Walter didn't know what to do with them at first. He shuffled into the diner one chilly morning, a stack of old photos and letters clutched in his weathered hands, and handed them to me with a quiet, you'll know what to do. Can you believe it? This unassuming man, who'd always kept to himself, trusted me with his past. I couldn't let that faith go to waste. I made copies, framed a few, and pinned one to the bulletin board with a scribbled note, if you know Walter, say thank you. And just like that, something incredible began to stir in our little town. The very next day, a woman, nobody knew her name, left a single daisy outside the patio table where Walter used to sit, alone and overlooked. No card, just a napkin with the words, we see you now. How touching is that? A simple flower for a man who'd been invisible for so long. 2 weeks later, my phone rang, City Hall. They wanted Walter to speak at the Veterans Day ceremony, saying it'd mean the world if someone like him, a symbol of silent service, could share a few words. I called him that night, and after a pause so long I thought he'd hung up, he murmured, if it helps others feel remembered, I'll go. His selflessness floored me. That Sunday, I stood at the back of the packed community auditorium, heart pounding, as Walter climbed the steps to the podium. No flashy uniform, no medals, just a crisp button-down shirt, his prosthetic leg gleaming, and that faded tattoo, a dagger through an anchor, peeking from his sleeve. He faced the crowd and said, I'm not a hero. I'm not a legend. I just did the right thing and tried to live quiet after. But if what I did helped someone, I'd do it again tomorrow. That's it. No grand speech, just raw truth, and the room exploded in applause. Why? Because his honesty hit us all like a freight train. After that, our town changed, can you feel it? People started waving to Walter on the street, their smiles bright with newfound respect. Kids raced up to him outside the post office, tugging at his sleeve, begging, "Tell us about your tattoo." Churches asked him to share his story, not to preach, just to connect. And his auto shop, a dusty little place that had barely survived 20 years, suddenly had cars lined up around the block. One morning, high school kids showed up with paint cans and ladders, grinning, "We're here to clean up the place, sir." Walter grumbled, he grumbled, but let them in. Soon, someone fixed the squeaky gate, another patched the roof, and a couple of veterans dropped off shiny new tools, saying, "Thought you could use these." What a turnaround. The man once ignored was now surrounded by gratitude. Walter didn't ask for any of it, he just smiled that quiet smile and kept working, because that's who he was. But then, in late spring, the mayor dropped a bombshell. They were putting up a plaque at City Hall, right by the flag. It read, "Honor the quiet ones, the ones who carried burdens we never saw, the ones who walked alone so others could come home." And at the bottom, his tattoo, etched in steel. At the unveiling, Walter stood there, wordless, tracing the metal with a trembling finger. His eyes glistened, "Did you catch that?" But no tears fell. They didn't need to, his silence said everything. Then came his 85th birthday. Oh, what a day. Walter wanted it simple, black coffee, toast, no fuss. But fate had other ideas. Just before 9 a.m., a low hum rolled through the air, followed by tires crunching gravel. I bolted outside the diner and, wow, 3 black SUVs and 2 Humvees screeched up to his shop. 7 young Navy SEALs stepped out, all sharp haircuts and polished boots, followed by Sarah Harrington, my cousin, my rock and granddaughter of James Harrington, clutching a wooden box and a folded flag. Walter emerged, wiping greasy hands on a rag, squinting in confusion, until he saw her. "Hi," Sarah said, voice shaking. "You probably don't remember me." He blinked. "I do. You have your grandfather's eyes." Her smile broke through tears as she said, "We came to honor your birthday and say thank you." One by one, those SEALs saluted him, can you picture it, then handed him the box. Inside, a medallion from the Navy SEAL Historical Foundation, engraved with his name and for service above silence. Walter whispered, "I thought they'd forgotten." Sarah grabbed his hand. "We never did." Time stopped, the wind sighed through the trees, and those tough SEALs stood humbled, knowing this was sacred. Sarah whispered, "He would have been proud, you know. My grandfather, James Harrington, would have been proud I got to thank you, for him, for all of us." Walter took her hand. "He was the best of us." She nodded. "So were you." For a heartbeat, he wasn't 85, he was 25 again, back in the jungle, carrying a promise kept alive through decades of silence. That week, the town buzzed quietly. The mayor proposed renaming the road by his shop, not for some bigwig, but for Walter. 3 weeks later, a sign went up, "Silent Service Way, in honor of Walter Reed, SEAL Team Bravo. Honor the quiet ones." No fancy ceremony, just a little flag planted beneath it, because Walter hated fanfare. He kept working, slower now, but steady. Neighbors lingered longer, kids brought crayon drawings, veterans shared faded photos. Sometimes, he'd talk, about a medevac 3 minutes late, a man carried across a smoky field. Not heroism, he'd say, just finishing the job. That was Walter, until it wasn't. 3 years later, on a crisp September morning, the flags dropped to half-staff. Walter passed in his sleep, no pain, just peace. The town froze, did you feel the hush? The diner closed early, school let out, and by noon, folks gathered at the rickety old church. They came in boots, uniforms, robes, because they knew what he'd borne in silence. The funeral was simple, a flag-draped casket, no speeches, just taps floating soft and low. 6 SEALs, including Jackson Miles, carried him, flown in from across the country, because a man like Walter. You show up. Sarah laid a photo of Walter and her grandfather on the casket, whispering, "You kept the promise for both of you." His headstone read, "His silence spoke volumes. His service changed lives." The diner's corner table sits empty now, a brass plaque bolted on, reserved in memory of Walter Reed, SEAL Team Bravo G7. Some men carry the mission long after the war ends. Tourists ask, "Who was he?" Locals point to Silent Service Way and smile. Because here, stories aren't loud, they're lived, one quiet act at a time, until we all remember. Kindness shines in the darkest corners, doesn't it? Some heroes don't crave applause, they just want to know someone's fed today. That can change everything. Forget this tale, and history stays mute. Walter Reed's story stirs something deep in me, a mix of admiration, gratitude, and a pang of guilt for how often we overlook the quiet heroes among us. His life as a Navy SEAL veteran, lived humbly and without fanfare, is a powerful testament to the strength found in simplicity. I'm moved by how his community finally saw him, not just as a man in the background, but as someone whose sacrifices shaped their world. It's heartwarming, yes, but it also ignites a fire in me to do better, to notice those who don't demand attention yet deserve it most. This story screams the value of community, and I can't help but feel inspired. The way the town rallied, kids fixing his shop, the mayor renaming a road, shows what happens when people come together with purpose. It's beautiful, and it makes me ache for that kind of unity in my own life. We're too quick to chase the loud and shiny, but Walter's tale proves that true impact often whispers, not shouts. I'm struck by the emotional weight of his recognition. To think that a simple, "thank you," or a small gesture could transform someone's world, it's both humbling and motivating. I believe we need more of this, intentional gratitude, not just for veterans, but for anyone quietly holding up the fabric of our lives. Walter's humility, his grace in accepting late-blooming honor, challenges me to live with less noise and more substance. His story isn't just a feel-good moment, it's a call to action. Who are the Walters around me? I want to find them, thank them, and make sure they know they're seen. We owe them that much. Subscribe to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where justice glows, kindness endures, and quiet heroism never fades.